Okay, so so I hope the background noise isn't too distracting. I do share walls with a laundry room. A little bit of ambiance, white noise, but hopefully the mic doesn't pick it up. I am going to the school today. Gotta get some writing done every day. I am nearing the end of the semester, the end of my master's program, and I have 3 papers to finish in the next month, so yeah, but I'm enjoying it. That's what I'm here for, so I am gonna go do that. I'm hoping the weather is nice. I'm gonna show you around Union Square, I guess, so yeah, well, let's go. It's hard to talk. I've tried this a few times and it's hard. Just a note about the lighting. I know it's terrible, but I'm in a basement with no windows and I'm just gonna be a little orange, so that's okay. So it's a day later after a little adventure into the city. It's rainy today and I just feel like taking a day in. I still have a lot to do, but I don't think it'll be super interesting to follow. And so I was trying to think of something interesting. I'm gonna show you my collage project. I've been collaging for almost a year now. I love it. I find it really accessible. I love the idea of just like tearing up pieces of paper, cutting things up, and just slapping them together. I really love it. I love looking for materials. That's a lot of fun. Um, but the project I'm working on right now was inspired, I guess, by an art exhibit I went to at the Guggenheim a while ago. Um, it the exhibit was called Orphism in Paris, which I did read the plaques, but it's still hard to, and maybe this is the nature of the movement, but it's kind of difficult um, to understand even like what the nature of the word Orphism was supposed to mean. It was related to the Greek myth of, I think, Greek of Orpheus, and then some French poet used the word Orphism, and I guess he was pally-wallies with the Orphist, who would be the Orphist artists, and wrote some notes when I was at the exhibit just to kind of describe, I guess, what Orphism overall is trying to depict. And this is from the plaques, I'm pretty sure. I'm not claiming authorship on these descriptions, but I've got Cubism in motion. So this is post-Cubism, but more dynamic. And it was focused on immediacy, simultaneity of vision, the idea that color can convey sensation as immediately as sound, um, which is something I feel and understand on that level more than my brain can comprehend what that's supposed to mean. um, but there are a few pieces I really loved. I'll show them here. But the one that really stood out to me, interestingly, was super simple. It was by an artist named Robert Delaunay, I think is how you say his name. And it was called First Disc. And it just kind of looked like a very colorful target. And one thing I love about collage, again, is it's kind of helped me to look at the idea of originality in art differently, because collage is so much about finding other materials and putting them together. You know, I have some art books that I use. I cut up pieces of art, things that other people have already done, and then I can do something different with it. I could radically alter it, or I could use it as a background for something simple, and it becomes something new. And I've been trying to lean into that. And so I found that this very simple piece, the first disc, was a good opportunity, kind of a simple opportunity for me to put that idea into practice of leaning into not trying to be original and honestly just copying something and seeing where that takes me. Maybe it's going to be it's going to be an iteration of the original artwork in some way. Maybe it's really minor, but in some way it becomes your own and something new. It's also just a great exercise. So that's the project I'm working on. I am going to be doing my own version of First Disc, and I just thought I'd take you along for the ride, show you my process, which is not really revolutionary at all, but I don't know. It's fun to watch something come together. So that's where we're gonna go. So, like I said, I'm already halfway through this project. I'm showing you here the template I made. I drew the disc and the different colors that will be going on each strip. I'm working on the second quadrant. There are 7 different colors per quadrant. As far as materials go, I'm pretty basic. I'm literally just using Elmer's purple glue sticks, the kind that start purple, but they go clear eventually. Okay, so here you can see I've used 2 quadrants up already. And basically I'm going to show you what I did for the first half of the project, basically starting back at the beginning of the process, which is cutting out my stencil. And then I just look for the colors that correspond to each of the strips, each of the sections that are on the original first disc piece. I'm using this Midjourney magazine. A friend found it. It's actually really hard, or it has been difficult for me to find cheap used magazines in New York City. Kind of surprised because where I'm from, you can go to Savers or your local thrift store and get a magazine for 99 cents, but all I've been able to find here is like vintage editions of magazines that cost $10. So I put the word out there that I was looking for materials, and my friends have delivered. And I guess this Midjourney magazine was left somewhere on someone's doorstep to take. So now I take my little protection pad, put it under the page that I'm cutting on. I found a nice little slice of blue to put into the center. It is kind of interesting using an AI art magazine for collage, because I think if AI art is going to do anything for artists, it should be as a material that I can take apart and make something human out of. So really, this is kind of the best case scenario for AI generated images, in my opinion. I have been finding it a lot easier, for this project at least, to find pages with whole blocks of color. A lot of the magazines I have, they have a lot of text or they're ads, and for some reason there's just a lot more going on a single page. So that's why I kind of stick to these magazines for this project. I know I keep trying to show you what color is written on each strip and that you can't read it, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, you'll get the you'll get the idea of the end. But I really did try to stick close to the color scheme of first disc. After laying down the last piece, the only thing left to do is to cut the disc from the background that I was using. The original artwork, the way it was framed in the museum, did not have a background. It was just the circle, and I had some trouble with the tape, but that's okay. In the spirit of collage, we kind of just slap it on there. I think at some point I want to show the rest of the collages I've done. There's quite a few, so let me know if you're interested in a little tour. I have no idea how I look when I'm filming. Yikes. Because I do not have a fancy camera. What am I talking about? Okay, so welcome to another rainy, cozy day in the basement. I thought that today we could talk about some books. I love books. I love watching book reviews, and so I thought I would do my own. I haven't had a ton of time for just like pleasure reading because grad school and but I am excited nonetheless because the first one I'm going to talk about is Liquid by Mariam Rahmani. I don't know if I don't know how to hold stuff up, but there you go. And wow, that's an art. I never realized. That's something to figure out for these things. How to hold a book. Anyway, I was expecting a certain thing from this book, and I'm glad that it did not fulfill my expectations. I'm glad that it did something different because what I was kind of well, first of all, plot wise, this is about a young woman who has just finished her PhD and doesn't know what to do with her life. Teaching academia, not fruitful financially. Yes, I understand. I understand the allure that she feels to maybe consider, you know, marrying rich. I can't lie, I've thought about it a lot over the past few months as I approach my graduation date. And so, besides just like a relatability, I guess, I kind of thought this might be something similar to Lauren Euler's fake accounts, which I didn't have as much of a problem with for the same reasons that a lot of people did. I kind of found it just like it's been so many years since I read it, but I thought that at least it was a sardonic take on, you know, the postmodern dating scene. And I don't know. I think I liked fake accounts, and so I kind of coming into this, I thought it'd be similar because basically the premise is that our main character plans on dating 100 people over the summer, 100 rich people, trying to get married by September, engaged, I guess, engaged to a wealthy person in order to escape the financial plight that she finds herself in post graduation. It is that for maybe the first quarter, but even right away, it the writing's beautiful. First of all, what a pleasure to read. The prose, line to line. I mean, I was trying to find something I would maybe choose to read out loud. it was difficult because all of it is just so gorgeous and luxurious and yet not overdone. And I was in with this premise, like, yeah, let's go on 100 dates. But it becomes pretty clear soon enough that this is not the story. The story takes you somewhere very different, and um, it's kind of a case of, like, you start with the idea that modern dating, contemporary dating scene is absurd. Postmodernism is absurd, or at least shows us what is absurd about life. And then something even more absurd ruptures that whole presentation of life. Something more absurd, as in, I don't want to give things away, but like real life. Like, so much about why things feel the way they do now is that it's so much of it seems virtual or hyper real. Um, but there are things like tragedy that rupture that image. Take us to a place of sincerity. That's where this book went. It started with an absurd premise and then ended up somewhere so sincere, and I loved it. If you're interested in queer theory or just theory in general, our main protagonist is queer, is a theorist, she's an academic. That goes some really interesting places. We talk about the philosophy of love, the idea of companionate marriage. She's half Iranian and she does her PhD thesis on companionate marriage, contra to like the modern idea of romantic love. I loved reading about her Iranian culture. She goes to Tehran at one point. I did find some, it was, like I said, it was hard to find one thing I would want to read without spoiling, and also the prose is woven throughout everything. I was trying to find something that I wouldn't have to give too much context, just to give you a sense of her writing, and I found at least one. Apricots you could smell at arm's length, cherries so sweet they were black, palm-sized cucumbers and Saturn peaches, and green grapes as small as pearls, nectarines smoother than a fresh wax, yellow peaches, and sunset cherries for diversity. Highly recommend. Reading this, like, I immediately knew that I'd be following Mariam and whatever she writes next. I'll read anything she writes. It's that good. The next book, it's hard to say I enjoyed it because of the subject matter. It's Care and Feeding, a memoir by Laurie Woolever, who was an assistant for Mario Batali and Anthony Bourdain. So you're in the food world, specifically, you're in the New York City food world. And gosh, I mean, it's a rough world. Substance abuse, um, sexual dysfunction, relationship issues, painful ones, sexual assault. She talks about working for Mario Batali and how that situation factored into early Me Too movement discussion. And there are several funerals, one of them being Anthony Bourdain. She was his assistant for like 10 years, I think. And then on top of that, like, yeah, she's just struggling with substance abuse, and it's constant. And by the end, like, Laura's doing well, right? She's okay now, which is nice to know going into a memoir. um, so all's well that ends well, sort of. The getting there is a rough going process. Again, we have a great writer. I thought the scene that she's in is crass. The writing is crass. She's depicting honestly her experiences. I don't know. I just needed to find something that gave you a sense of writing. And again, that I didn't have to provide too much context to. Although there's not really a threat of spoilers in this sense. But yeah, when she first started working in a kitchen, this is how she described it. She said, "There was something almost spiritual about the whole enterprise. When I was in it, and everyone else was in it too, and it took a few seconds to look up and observe the functioning of this improbable human machine of a restaurant, pushing back against entropy, something larger than any one of us could execute alone. I felt I was seeing perfection, evidence of God even, and this human cooperation toward a common goal. It moved me, the way I had once been moved by singing the easy rock Catholic hymns and ancient Christmas songs of my small town youth." It was fascinating. It's so far outside the realms of my own life. Even the mood, the attitude, like the hustle to keep on top of this life in this industry. I could never. I don't think I could even work in a kitchen. Um, but like I love that she's able to portray even that thing that sounds so chaotic and hot and um like the energy moving towards entropy. You know, I love that I'm able to look inside and see someone else say that they felt like a god presence there. And even later on, she said when she was in the kitchen, she felt like an athlete. She felt like a genius. She felt like a god. She'd later realize she was none of those things, but that's uh, apparently something you can feel in a kitchen, a restaurant kitchen, and I had no idea. Since I'm not able to tackle a lot of full books right now, I jumped into this poetry collection that I've had on my shelf. It's the poet um, poetry journal. What do you call this? A journal? Poetry the journal from 2020. I have a whole stack of them on my shelf that I've never read. I bought them at a thrift store and they've just been gathering dust. And I came across this poem by Hannah Copley and I just keep rereading it over and over again. I love it. I don't exactly know why. It's called Lapwing, which is a bird. Um, and I did a little bit of research. I just wanted to know what it looked like, so I googled it. But I also came across the little tidbit that in the Bible, in Leviticus, the Israelites are forbidden from eating the lapwing, and not much more is said about that, but you can kind of feel that there's some kind of, yeah, like biblical esteem for this bird. It has 20 stanzas that are all numbered, and on top of that, it there's like an epitaph for it, um, a poem by John Gower called Confessio Amantis, which ends, "A lapwing hath lost his faith and is the bird falsest of all." So there's like this lore about this bird that I'm not aware of, but you through the rhythm and the repetition, it's like this lapwing bird. There's this reverence for it. It comes to seem so noble. I don't know. I can't read the whole thing. You can read it on Poetry Foundation, the whole poem. But I um, is such a joy to read. So I'm going to read the first three stanzas, maybe. Otherwise known as peewit, otherwise known as tuit, otherwise known as vanellus, vanellus of the family Charadridae, otherwise known as plain old lappy nestling itself in the till, otherwise known as diver, found in its down in the center of some middle of nowhere, otherwise known as wailer, otherwise known as waverer, as imp, liar, as shrill green sky, as waiter of the marsh, slope, as flock, as Tereus, turned and heckler, otherwise known as crown prince, as crest, as sharp throat, as hair, otherwise known as zigzag, soaring, dizzy, otherwise known as lost. Otherwise known as green plover, controller of seasons, shaman, crook, some skittish soul turning everything it doesn't understand into a god. God of the long grass, god of the cuckoo bird, god of the gloved hand, god of the drought, god of the estate, god of the sloping roof, god of the silver tree, god of the frost, god of the harvest, god of the metal roar, god of the spinning white, god of the crop, god of the unhatched, god of the death machine. otherwise known as nickname posture as totter, raked ground, lapwing. Some sly, false flex, otherwise felt as a leap, as tombstone shiver, as an ever constant wince. Like, I'm getting chills just reading it out loud. Again, I don't know, but that's poetry. To even say I don't know what it means is missing the point. You feel something, and I'm in love with this bird, and I want to know more about it. And um, at the same time, I feel like everything I need to know about it is in this poem. And um, yeah, I just thought that was pretty magical. I think now it's kind of time to wind down with my night, and I am going to watch a movie. One of the perks of being in a basement is it is perfect for a projector. So I got myself a little mini projector when I moved in. I have a great wall space for it, pitch black. I love it. So let's go pick a movie and close out our night.